Well, I am joined by co-host of The Herd, Joy Taylor, who will be with us along with Bucky Brooks. Don't get enough of Bucky Brooks, so good to have him as well. But starting things off, Dak Prescott, he knows he needs some help. Can he elevate his unproven receivers? I do not believe so. I think that the Cowboys are going to be in a world of trouble this season, and here's the reason. Even when Dak does have the ability to elevate his unproven receivers, remember Michael Gallup, drafted in the 3rd round by the Dallas Cowboys. By his sophomore season, he had a 1,000-yard season. It was 2019. Everything was going great for Michael Gallup. Dak Prescott elevated Michael Gallup. But what did the elevation of Michael Gallup do for Dak Prescott or the Dallas Cowboys? Because in 2019, Dak Prescott actually missed the playoffs. Can Dak Prescott help elevate these unproven receivers? Well, maybe. Remember last year, Thanksgiving Day, watched by the most people in a regular season since 1993, 35 million viewers. Cowboys leading receivers, Cedric Wilson, Michael Gallup, they balled 100 yards each. But the Cowboys still caught an L. So can Dak Prescott elevate his unproven wide receivers? Yeah, I fervently believe so. I definitely think he can. But the real issue for me, even if he does, what does that truly mean? Now, Bucky Brooks, you and I have had elongated debates about Dak Prescott and the elevation of the wide receivers. Do you even believe that Dak Prescott can, in fact, elevate those unproven receivers?
Oh, absolutely. He can do that. I think he certainly can get those guys to play at a high level. A bunch of no names, right? Outside of C.D. Lamb, we don't really know what they are. It's Dalton Schultz. He can be a player. But to me, I think this might be a blessing in disguise for the Dallas Cowboys because I believe for the Cowboys, fewer passes, more runs, better recipe for winning. Because when you go back and you look at see how the Cowboys have traditionally won, it has been on the backs of the offensive line and the running game with a complementary passing game helping them out. But what happens sometimes is Kellen Moore gets enamored with the passes. They want to throw the ball all over the yard. It looks good on the stat sheet. Kellen Moore is trying to get his resume right for the next job. But it works to the detriment of the Cowboys and their success. But now, with all the injuries on the perimeter, he can't go to Mike McCarthy and say, hey, this is a game, coach. I think we got to throw 65-35. That needs to be the ratio. No. Now it's more Zeke, more Tony Pollard, more offensive line play. That, to me, is the best recipe for the Dallas Cowboys to have success.
But then it seems like you're saying that it wouldn't be wise for Dak Prescott to even try and help elevate his receivers. Instead, he should lean on to the running game. Is that what you're trying to communicate?
Well, I'm saying that would be better, but you asked me, is he capable of elevating them? Yes, he is capable because that's what elite quarterbacks do. They raise the level of play of everyone around them. And so when Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback, yes, I'm willing to bank that he can get them to play. But for them to play to win, it needs to be Zeke and Tony Pollard that are leading the way behind that offensive line.
Bucky Brooks, I cannot tell if the lack of notes is a lack of preparation or if the lack of notes just means you are so astute.
Jay-Z. It's like Jay-Z. When Jay-Z goes into the booth, we don't need all that other stuff. We just come with it.
Okay, well, I guess you're J. Cole because Joy's in the booth with all her notes. Talk to us, Jay.
I was a little nervous with Bucky because Bucky and I generally do not agree on anything when it has to do with the Dallas Cowboys. And I agree with everything
You coming over? You coming over on this side? I appreciate it, Joy.
There's two questions here. Is he capable of elevating unproven wide receivers? I think you made the case that he is capable of it. But does that mean that they're going to win? No, it doesn't. I mean, they'll win, they'll win the division. They love to win the division, the Dallas Cowboys. They love a divisional, championship. Postseason is a different conversation. To Bucky's point, if they are going to be successful, it needs to be a run-first offense. That's what we've seen the Cowboys, as of recent, with Dak Prescott, have the most success. And I say that not as an indictment of Dak Prescott, because that's always what it lands on. Mm-hmm. It's always like, well, they run the ball first, so that means Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback and he's not capable of leading them to a Super Bowl. What quarterback in the last 26 years has been capable of leading them to a Super Bowl? None, zero. So that doesn't matter. What's the conversation? Is he capable? Can we see it? Is he a confetti guy? I believe he is, and I know that he's capable of elevating unproven wide receivers. I don't feel great about their wide receiver situation, but I think that the offensive line and the running game are the most important thing to this particular offense. The Cowboys have a tier 2 offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. They're ranked in the preseason rankings at 6th. That's pretty good. The Eagles, Browns, Lions, Bucks are listed as tier 1. If they have a solid offensive line, if they can run the ball, not necessarily all on Ezekiel Elliott or all on Tony Pollard, I think it will be a running back by committee situation. But if they can rely on the running game and good offensive line play, that allows Dak Prescott more time. It allows Dak Prescott to distribute the ball, but they don't have to rely on their receivers as much, and they do have a number one wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb was the number one wide receiver last year. Amari Cooper was just he was. He
no, like, don't ignore the eye rolls and stuff over there. Like, we're good.
That wasn't a question. Like, the statistics support what I'm saying.
Yes, he's number one receiver.
We operate in facts on this side of the table. He was the number one wide receiver. He will step into that role perfectly because he already did it. Amari Cooper's obviously the bigger name and the veteran and was being paid more, but I'm not concerned about him. I'm with Bucky. Offensive line, run first.
I have a question about something you said. Joy, I know that you have a diverse friend group, you have a diverse mindset, all the things, but surely you've gone out with friends before and you've had to say this to one of your friends, one of your homeboys, one of your homegirls. Hey, just don't really talk a lot when we're right? You've done that before, surely.
Yep.
You typically have to do this if you don't trust what might come out of your friend's mouth. You typically have to warn your friend, like, hey, when we're here, just speak like as little as possible. You do this because you don't trust your friend. If you were telling Dak Prescott, a quarterback, hey, let's just depend on the running game. When we're here, let's just depend on Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. You typically do that because you don't fully trust your quarterback. We never told Peyton Manning, as great as Edgerrin James was, Hall of Famer, Edgerrin James. As great as Edgerrin James was, hey, Peyton, this game, let's depend on Edgerrin. We never told Tom Brady, and remember, LeGarrette Blount led the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 17 when he was playing for the Patriots. We never said, hey, Tom, just depend on LeGarrette, if you will. The Chiefs drafted in the first round a running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the year after they won the Super Bowl. A national championship running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you never heard us say, hey, Patrick, just depend on Clyde. But we say for the Cowboys to be successful, you gotta depend on the running game. I find fault in that. I think that is an indictment on Dak Prescott. How can you say that it's not?
Well, I think it depends on what you measure success in. They had a successful regular season last year. They went 12-5. They had the number one offense. And where did it land them? They lost in the first game of the playoffs.
True.
So if your measurement for success is winning the division and having a nice regular season, then yes, you can pass the ball first. You can be tied for first in passing yards per game. You can have the number one offense. That is success. For most teams, that is a great year. But the Cowboys aspire to more. So the facts tell you that if you want to win in the postseason, that you need to be run first, pass second. That's not an indictment of the quarterback. Different systems lean towards different things. Nobody's yelling at Kyle Shanahan about this. Would you say that's a pass first?
I like that point. That's a phenomenal point. Let's look at all of us. The reason that's such a phenomenal point is because there are two types of coaches. Bucky, you know this. You played in several systems, I would believe. There are coaches who say, hey, y'all are going to run my system regardless of the talent. And then there's a coach that says, you know what? Based upon my talent, I'm changing my system. My talent's just so good, I got to change my system. You don't look at uber dominant, talented quarterbacks and make them be run first. You're exactly right with Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G, but Jimmy G is the most debated quarterback outside of Dak Prescott in all of football. Keeping in mind, Jimmy G, since 2019, last I checked, leads the NFL in yards after catch, meaning his receivers are doing more work than he is or than any other quarterback. Bucky, when you look at Dak, and I love the points that both of y'all are making, I truly think they are brilliant points, but when you look at Dak, isn't it some sort of condemnation on the fact that we know Zeke is declining? Zeke has been declining for 5 consecutive years, and you all are still throwing pennies into this wishing well, hoping that Zeke is going to be something when you got a $160 million in totality, man. $75 million last year, man, in Dak.
I mean, so here's the thing. I fancy myself as an outstanding A-plus baker, right? Okay. Like, when I get in the kitchen and I'm going to make my peach cobbler, look, it's going to make everybody at the table tingle. But the thing that I still have to do, even though I'm accomplished, award-winning, I still have to refer to my mom's recipe when I look at it.
That's fair.
So when you think about the formula and the blueprint, when you go back through history of the Dallas Cowboys win when they run the football. Whether they had Tony Romo or Troy Aikman or whatever, this is an organization that is built on the running game. And so when I look at the formula and the recipe that has worked for Dak Prescott, it has always been heavy dose of the running game, a sprinkle of Dak Prescott, great defense. when I think about, and I'm advocating for them to run the football, it's not just because of Dak Prescott. It's because when I run the football, I also protect my defense. Because remember, the defense takes the ball away.
Yeah, but
it's not we're going to stand up and win a slugfest defense. So now what I'm doing is I'm reducing the game. I'm protecting my defense. I got those dudes, Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, being able to take the ball away. But I also have the ability to control it. So now I can set up the shots for my wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb is my number one. Dalton Schultz is my guy that controls the middle of the field. Someone else will emerge. Remember, Michael Gallup coming off this ACL, maybe mid-season, he's able to do it. So we start out running to collect the dubs, to put us in a position to win another division title, to get another hat and T-shirt that you have. We got them all in the closet. But then we get an opportunity to run the right way. So now when we get into the postseason, we're able to do it. I think that's what Mike McCarthy is saying to his coaches and telling Kellen Moore, now we're going to run the football a little more, not so much Dak Prescott, not because he's not talented.
I have a thought before I come to you, Jordan. My thought is this, because we always say that the Cowboys, historically speaking, when they won, it was because they were run first. And that is true. Troy Aikman had Emmitt Smith, Larry Allen, amongst others. But I'm thinking, wasn't this more so a matter of the era than it was a matter of the Cowboys? Because remember, back in the day, you had Batman Green with even the Packers. Like, it was a run-heavy league back in the late 90s, the early 90s, the late 80s. You had the Nigerian Nightmare for the Kansas City Chiefs. You had true bulldozers. Now it's spread all the way around. I don't know if that was as much the Cowboys' formula for winning as it was the NFL's formula for winning. But the NFL's formula for winning, Joy, to me, has changed. Now the NFL's formula for winning. The Kansas City Chiefs literally went down the field in 13 seconds to beat the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills had over, I think, 400 yards or 380 yards passing in a game in which they lost. The formula for winning is passing. Can the Cowboys try to zig when everyone else is zagging and actually think that's going to be a formula for winning?
Well, I'm not saying it's not concerning. I am concerned about their wide receiving core, but they had Amari Cooper. And they had CeeDee Lamb last year. They had this, and Cedric Wilson. They had a solid receiving core last year, top of the league, some would argue.
Yeah,
and it wound up doing what for them in the postseason? Nothing. So you can argue both ways. I do agree with you. The league has shifted more towards wide receivers. We're seeing the money shift towards wide receivers. Yes. We're seeing examples like you just gave of the Chiefs going down the field in 13 seconds. That was wide receivers. But I don't think that negates the necessity for a solid run game. And to Bucky's point, if you're playing balanced football, you can't just throw the ball the whole time. You've got to be able to keep your defense, the other team's defense, honest and give your defense a break, which the running game does do. By the way, I don't know if I believe you on this peach cobbler. We've worked together a lot.
I know.
And you constantly talk about
I
never had one
I know both of you guys, like, you are a fitness fanatic. You also work with the trainer. So I'm not trying to be the guy that brings you on the bad side. I don't want, look, I'm trying to keep everybody fit.
Bucky, now you know that you know you're lying.
Self-handicapping 101.